Do you hear that? That's the sound of seconds counting down until January 1st, 2024. As on that date, what is easily the most recognizable cartoon character, Mickey Mouse, will finally enter the public domain. And this is sure to be a watershed moment, not just for Disney, but for the entire entertainment industry. And so today, let's dive in and discuss the complexities, the ramifications, and the ethical creative dilemma that this one small technicality will have. Up next. Hi there Waltineers, I'm Jack and this is DSNY Newscast, and in today's video I'm going to be discussing the oh-so-sexy topic of copyright law and the public domain. But I assure you that this will be a hugely consequential issue for decades to come. However, first, let's begin by understanding what exactly is this dreaded public domain that Disney has successfully kept Mickey Mouse out of entering in the past. As basically, the public domain is a blanket term used to describe a type of copyright no man's land, where creative works of any kind, be it Shakespearean plays, Beethoven symphonies, or Dickensian characters like Ebenezer Scrooge, that no longer have intellectual property right protection, will therefore be automatically entered into the public domain. And once they've entered this state, anyone can then freely replicate or adapt the given creative works without obtaining permission from or compensating the copyright owner. But it's the way in which creative works tend to enter the public domain that has Disney and so many others worried. As besides forfeiting or waiving the rights entirely, which, let's be realistic, these massive conglomerates are never going to do, the most common way in which creative works enter the public domain is through the mandated expiration date, which is codified into US copyright law. As the 1976 Copyright Act stated that the copyright protection would only last for 50 years after the author's death or 75 years from publication, whichever is shorter, which would have meant that Mickey Mouse, who first debuted in 1928, would have whistled his way into the public domain on January 1st, 2004. However, in 1998, Californian Congressman Sonny Bono, yep, that Sonny Bono from Sonny and Cher, said to Disney and others, "I got you, babe," and introduced the Copyright Term Extension Act of 1998. And what this extremely controversial act did at the time was extend the previous copyright expiration terms by an additional 20 years, from 75 to 95 years after publication, meaning that any creative works from 1923 onwards were essentially frozen in time from entering the public domain for 2 decades until 2019. Which then brings us to today, as you see the time's ticking away and we're now less than 1 year away from that date of January 1st, 2024, and Mickey Mouse officially entering the public domain. However, this isn't going to be the classic red shorts, yellow shoes Mickey and the iconic polka dot Minnie that will enter the public domain, but instead it will only be the rudimentary black and white versions of Mickey and Minnie Mouse from the 1928 short Steamboat Willie that will then be fair game for artists from all over the world to freely use to reproduce and adapt for derivative works for commercial purposes and making profit. But before you begin thinking about the tantalizing prospect of raking in as many of those Disney dollars as you can, well, the Mouse House has a secret weapon in their arsenal, and it comes in the form of Mickey Mouse TM. As trademarks can be any word, phrase, symbol, or design, or pretty much any combination of those things put together that helps the consumers identify a product or service to be authentic and officially associated with a given entity within a marketplace. And in the case of this Steamboat Willie version of Mickey and Minnie Mouse, yep, you've guessed it, of course Disney has already trademarked them. And unlike copyright protection expiration dates, trademarks only ever expire if they are not renewed on a regular basis, which you can bet Disney's army of lawyers are devoted to doing. However, it goes even deeper than a simple trademark, as you see Disney has ensured that the 1928 version of Mickey Mouse is intrinsically linked to the Disney brand itself. As in 2007, Walt Disney Animation Studios rebranded their theatrical logo introduction that plays before every one of their movies to include a snippet of the Steamboat Willie short. And so in this one simple act, Disney has taken a relatively obscure and little known version of the Mickey Mouse character and secured the active use of this version of Mickey as a distinctive brand identifier. And even though the short has no resale or redistribution value since it's been free to watch on YouTube since 2009, Disney has built a profitable brand around Steamboat Willie with vintage style merchandise, which means that anyone who seeks to use the design in 2024 for commercial purposes will likely face the wrath of Disney's legal department. But it's going to be extremely interesting to see how these trademarks will be used within Disney's strategy to protect their characters and intellectual property from prolific public domain usage. As after all, in 2030, Donald Duck and Goofy will join Mickey and Minnie in the public domain. Then in 2033, Disney's first ever feature-length animated movie, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, will also enter the public domain as well. And this copyright headache isn't just coming down the pipe for Disney, but it's also going to be coming for other movie studios as well, such as Warner Brothers, as popular DC superheroes Superman and Batman will become public domain in 2034 and 2035 respectively, and Looney Tunes characters such as Daffy Duck, Elmer Fudd and Bugs Bunny will all join the public domain from 2033 to 2036. Therefore, if Disney and others try to use trademarks as a substitution for copyright law to subvert the natural progression of creative derivatives in the public domain, then they might end up running into further trouble from high court rulings. As in 2003, the United States Supreme Court warned against the misuse and overextension of trademark law to restrict the republication of creative works within the public domain, stating that it would create a species of mutant copyright law. And so if trademarks are the answer to Disney's problems, then they will have to find creative ways to transform these specific versions of the characters into active brands associated with Disney, so that they can then apply trademark law more rigorously. And as part of all of this, we're probably going to see Disney finally embrace the heritage of the company and celebrate its history to keep these character variants protected. And if you want an example of this, then we might have to look no further than Walt's first animated creation that preceded Mickey by 1 year, and that's Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. As you see, as of January 1st, 2023, Oswald officially entered the public domain. Now of course Oswald is an obscure character that only really hardcore Disney fans know about, but this was a character Walt created in 1927 that became somewhat successful, to the point where Walt's producer and distributor Charles Mintz stole the character, forcing Walt to go independent and start over again with Mickey Mouse in 1928. But for the remainder of the 20th century, Oswald was Universal's property. However, in 2006, Disney CEO Bob Iger negotiated the return of this character and the trademark to Disney. And although this was a promising sign at the time, with Oswald becoming a character featured at Disney California Adventure, along with some merchandise, and most notably being used within the 2010 video game Epic Mickey, for most of the 16 years that Oswald has been Disney's once again, the character has only been used sparingly. But then, that changed in December of 2022, as for the first time since 1928, Disney produced a completely new Oswald the Lucky Rabbit cartoon published to YouTube, utilizing the original character design. And also around the same time, Disney licensed Oswald's likeness to be used in a new merchandise line for French luxury fashion firm Givenchy. Now of course, this could be a sheer coincidence, as Disney is celebrating its 100th anniversary throughout this year, as it was founded on October 16th, 1923. But with Oswald entering the public domain in 2023, this could also be showing us a blueprint of Disney's way of making active use of the old character design to then strengthen any potential legal dispute in the future. But in good conscience, I couldn't wrap up this video without mentioning the hypocritical elephant in the room here, and that is the simple fact that much of Disney's creative empire, which is vast, was built on the foundations of public domain works. As after all, without the European fairy tales of the Brothers Grimm, Carlo Collodi, Charles Perrault, Lewis Carroll and Hans Christian Andersen, there would be no Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Pinocchio, Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, Alice in Wonderland, The Little Mermaid, Princess and the Frog, Tangled and Frozen. and in actual fact approximately half of Walt Disney Animation's feature-length movie catalogue uses some form of public domain works as the foundation on which they have built their own story as a derivative work. So there is very clearly an ethical dilemma surrounding this entire topic, and Disney is going to have to tread carefully from a public relations standpoint to not overplay their hand, whilst also crucially protecting their intellectual property assets, which is going to be a very interesting balancing act to watch over the coming years. But now, it's over to you, the Waltineers. I would like to know, what are your thoughts and opinions on Mickey Mouse entering the public domain? Do you see this being a major issue for Disney in the future, and the reason why? And if you've enjoyed this video for today, then give this video a massive thumbs up, share this video with a friend who might be interested, and also check out the rest of the videos on the channel. And with all of that being said, I've been Jack, you've been you, and I'll see you real soon.
The picture was based on Lewis Carroll's famous book, Through the Looking Glass. We took many liberties in this film, including substituting Mickey Mouse in the role of Alice.